Hi, I'm Dr. Fernani and I'm joining you here from Village Veterinary Clinic, and today we will be talking about cat deworming and intestinal parasites. So what are intestinal parasites? A lot of them fall into the class of nematodes, and they are usually spread by what's called a fecal oral route. So when your cat, especially outside, picks up something either on its paws that may be contaminated by another animal's poop, they can ingest that as they clean themselves and get these little parasites in their intestines. A lot of times it can cause some health effects, and we do like to stay on top of that. So how do intestinal parasites impact the health and well-being of your cat? Well, a lot of times what people most notice is diarrhea. Their cats can also be quite thin. We see this quite a lot with kittens, where they come into a house, especially if they were found outside, have a pretty heavy worm burden, and have diarrhea and just seem like really unthrifty. And once we take care of those parasites, they do a lot better. What are preventative measures that can be taken to ensure my cat doesn't get worms or other parasites? The good news is that a lot of the heartworm preventatives, which we do recommend that cats be on year-round, can also treat intestinal parasites. So you get some protection there. Of course, if your cat ever does have diarrhea, that is one of the things that we will check. And then we do recommend at least checking every year. And if you can, bring us a little sample from the litter box, because it's pretty hard to get a sample in cats sometimes. What are some signs and symptoms of intestinal parasites in your cat? So for most of the intestinal parasites, roundworms, tapeworms, hookworms, and whipworms, we will see diarrhea, sometimes bloody diarrhea, or very soft stool. Occasionally you won't see anything at all because the cat has just kind of learned to deal with them. They can be quite thin. Sometimes you will see vomiting as well. Roundworms will occasionally come up in vomit, although there is a type of parasite that lives in the lungs called a lungworm that cat gets from eating lizards that you can also see it that way. Of course, outdoor cats are going to be more prone to developing intestinal parasite infections, so it is important to make sure we deworm those cats at least once a year. For some of the other types of worms, so a lot of people ask about ringworm. That's not actually a worm, it is a fungus, and that usually looks like patches of hair that have been lost, and sometimes your cat can be quite itchy with it. Can you see worms in your cat's stools? This is a question we get a lot, or we get people who call and say that they are seeing worms. And while you can see some worms, so roundworms look like a piece of spaghetti, hookworms look like little threads, usually people can't see whipworms at all, but the most common one is tapeworms that we see. These look like little grains of rice that have stuck to the fur right around the anus, or I like to say it looks like a little cucumber seed that has set up and is waving at you in the stool. So that one's usually pretty easy to see. And unfortunately, tapeworms do take a special dewormer. How will a veterinarian diagnose intestinal parasites in your cat? So what we do to diagnose intestinal parasites is we get a fecal sample and kind of mix it up with a solution that lets all the eggs float to the top. And then we'll take a little slide and lay it on the top of that solution so that the eggs stick to the slide, and go look at it under a microscope. So occasionally we can see the ova there. There are new tests out that actually look for the genetic material of the parasites, and especially in cases where the cat may have diarrhea or it's hard to get a sample, we will use that test because it is more accurate and it is very sensitive to parasites. Why is early detection and diagnosis of intestinal parasites so important? Well, as these infections continue, the lining of the intestinal tract can really wear down and cause worse disease. It also makes cats prone to additional disease, so we want to make sure that we stay on top of any kind of parasite infection. When should my cat see a veterinarian for deworming? So again, indoor cats, probably at least once a year. Outdoors, they may need to be about twice a year, especially if you have a really good hunter on your hands. If you have any questions regarding cat deworming, please give us a call. We are always here for you.